A strong coastal storm system is developing this morning off the coast of the southeast and is forecast to bring impacts up the east coast as we go throughout our weekend into early next week. Here to give you all the detailed information on this storm and the changes we've seen over the last 24 hours, and we'll speak on that as we go. We'll go over model guidance first, impacts as far as rainfall, winds. We'll show you some graphics from some of these local national weather services and these areas that could see the worst of the impacts, and then we'll speak on today's weather across the entire lower 48. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the system itself. You know, it's tucked in off the coast of the southeast. We're not seeing really any impacts or anything up the east coast as of right now, but that'll change throughout the weekend. Now, I will say it is showing rain all the way into central South Carolina. I actually live here in Columbia, South Carolina, and we're not getting any rainfall right now, so a little bit of Virgo. We got a lot of dry air getting yanked down from the north all the way down into like northern areas of Florida. So you can really walk outside if you live in like Georgia, the Carolinas, surrounding states, and I mean, you'll say right off the dot, it does not feel tropical outside at all. And that is because this system is not tropical. It has a lot of dry, cool air wrapped into it. So this is more so, in fact, it really is a nor'easter rather than a tropical system. But some of the impacts we'll see with this system is going to be similar to a tropical system. But it is definitely raining along areas of the Georgia coastline, South Carolina coastline, and the southeast areas of North Carolina coast. And we got some moisture being pushed into the outer banks, and the winds probably aren't that bad right this second, but that'll change as we move over the next 12, 24 hours. But the core of this system is right here, right now, and you can tell the heavier stuff is off the coastline. Now we make this a little bit wider. We move up the eastern shoreline. There's nothing going on. Some northern streams starting to dig down. And the thing that, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, the thing that we'll talk about in this system is how this entire event has trended to a more of a dual low pressure mode rather than a complete phasing of these two pieces of energy. So that's why we almost have a two storm setup kind of mode, if that makes sense. So we'll speak on that as we go, but it's quiet up the mid-Atlantic and New England coastline as of right now. Let's continue to move forward. So let's go over this model guidance. What's changed? And yeah, we'll speak on it. Let's start off, well, we're actually in the past. So let's go to the present. So this is about right now what the Euro thinks is happening, and it's pretty spot on. You can see the heaviest of this action off the coastline, but as we move into, say, this evening, really so this afternoon, low pressure 998, so a pretty strong low off the coastline of the southeast, and some of this heavier action begins to move up against the North Carolina coastline. So I really think as we get into the PM hours today, that's when things are going to get dicey along the North Carolina coastline and maybe as far south as like the Grand Strand, some strong gusty winds. Now watch what happens. You think this low pressure is going to start to just fully eject up the eastern shoreline. It does not. It kind of hangs with us. And because it does that, a lot of rain gets slung a lot further west than what we were thinking maybe 24 hours ago. Now I'm not talking about like 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts like all the way to Columbia, Charlotte, you know, Winston-Salem, things like that. But it does push. Basically what I'm saying is a lot of us were thinking we're going to have a dry weekend once we got inland to the Carolinas and even Georgia. It's probably not the case anymore. You know, portions of the weekend will be dry, but we might have to deal with a lot more wet weather than what we thought initially. But the impacts along the east coastline is pretty dicey here. And watch what happens as we get into Sunday morning. Low pressure sort of just there's a low pressure right here, and there's one right here, and they're completely separated here. And this one kind of drifts around off the coast of the Carolinas and continues to bring big impacts along the coastline of the Carolinas as we get into tomorrow, all the way into Monday, and then this thing finally drifts away. Now, what about same thing, same model, but for the Northeast? And here it comes, and this is a totally different low pressure that begins to bring a huge swath of rain into southern New England, all the way down to the Jersey Shore. And this, as we starting to get into tomorrow evening, you see this coloring in like yellowish, orange, red. This is very heavy rainfall with some strong winds mixing to the surface. So things get dicey tomorrow evening on Long Island, New York City, if this is correct. And it bumps this kind of low pressure pretty far west as we're getting into Monday morning. And this is when we could get some significant impacts along the coastlines of New Jersey, Long Island, and surrounding coastlines, all the way down to maybe the Tidewater. And I mean, this is where the rainfall could really pick up, could wake up to a really messy start to our work week Monday morning. Look at this big plume of rain. How far inland will it get? Yeah, a little bit of a sneeze coming. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I think it went away. But we get into Monday afternoon. This actual low pressure, which is different than the one to the south that we just discussed, actually pushes inland. Then everything just sort of weakens, and then we're done. What about the GFS? Same thing, started off this morning. It gets this low pressure further north, but we get a big area of rain kind of pushing all the way back to the Midlands of South Carolina. And then look how dicey it gets along the Outer Banks. This area in yellow, getting into orange, red, this is very heavy rainfall. This is strong gusty winds, 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts. But that low pressure is just spinning off the coast of North Carolina and actually makes a landfall, technically, into the Outer Banks as we're getting into Sunday evening. And then it just kind of meanders away and then leaves us. What about the GFS into the northeast and areas of the mid-Atlantic? And here it comes. We get into Sunday. Just doesn't look as bad. Does kind of have a separate low pressure here, but honestly, this just looks more so like the low pressure. So to the south. So GFS, it doesn't really disconnect two areas of energy. Now, there's probably an area of lower pressure right in here, central lower pressure, but the GFS kind of just, it doesn't look as bad for areas in the northeast. The Euro, a little bit different. Two separate, kind of a two-storm mode kind of setup. GFS, not so much. Doesn't look quite as bad. Look, as we get later in this work week, a little bit of blue starts to show up on our map, man. And look how this low pressure tries to circle back around. It's just wild stuff. Now, if we look at some short-range models, like the HRRR model, and you know, I started noticing this after I got home from a mountain trip yesterday, and just how different the HRRR model is. HRRR model, HRRR model. I like to switch it up sometimes to just keep you guys on your toes, right? But we get into this afternoon, and it really gets this shield of rain all the way to Charlotte, all the way to Columbia. So some light to moderate rain begins to fall, and this rain almost gets all the way to the Greenville-Spartanburg area, definitely to Augusta. And this is our low pressure, and this is only going to go 48 hours out. We get into Sunday morning. Rain's pushing all the way back to central Georgia. A little bit of a break here as this low pressure maybe begins to weaken. And then we get into Sunday and just a sporadic showery type day with some breezy winds, gusty conditions along the coastline. But the rainfall intensity really lessens up. And then as we're getting into the late tomorrow night, whatever's left of this low pressure looks to almost like grind up against the southeast North Carolina coastline. Now, same thing, we can only go 48 hours out, but here comes this big push of rain tomorrow for the northeast. Doesn't look all that bad as far as heavy rainfall, more so just moderate rain. And it almost looks like the HRRR model sort of following the GFS. You got to get a sip of that cold brew coffee, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, it looks like it almost follows the GFS as far as it not being as intense. So we got some questions to really answer here. Now let's go over rainfall. I'm going to flip through some graphics, take our time. This is the latest from basically the Weather Prediction Center, National Weather Service, right? They're now forecasting an inch of rain in Columbia. That's where I live. Between now and pretty much the entirety of this event. All these graphics are through the entirety of the event. And I mean, Myrtle Beach about 2 inches, Charleston 1 inch to an inch and a half, but you can see how much this is pushed further west. Now, you know, we do take a look at, you know, say, I'm not going to go through all these or we'll get stuck forever here. We go over the latest from the Euro. What does it show? And, yeah, we might not be able to flip through all these graphics like I want to because it'll take forever, but this is the Euro. Euro, not as much, but it wants to dump like a lot. It wants to dump a lot of rain over Myrtle Beach to Charleston. You see how different that is? National Weather Service calling for 1-2 inches of rain. Euro going for like over a half a foot of rain. Now what about the GFS? And this is, oh, here we go. We're moving a little bit smoother now. Okay, this is the way I hope it continues to do it. GFS, 2 inches of rain in Columbia, Florence, a little bit north, 2 inches to 3 inches. And it kind of follows the National Weather Service. Look at this tight cutoff area right in here. And then what about the HER model that I discussed? Because it does show a lot of rain pushing into some of these areas. And look at this. This is just between now and about 2 a.m. Let's between now and about the next 48 hours. Wants to dump 5 inches of rain on Charleston. Columbia about an inch, inch and a half. Even Augusta almost an inch of rain. Rock Hill almost an inch of rain. Look how it gets some of this rain all the way back to Statesboro, Georgia. So there is some differences here. Now we look at, the rest of South Carolina, North Carolina, up into Southeast Virginia. This is what the National Weather Service is predicting. The eastern sections of North Carolina, anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of rain as possible. But, some of this other model guidance sort of disagrees. And just bear with me. We're just going to meander our way through this video. I wanted to pull up graphics for everything, but it was just going to take forever, guys. And it already took me a lot longer to do this video than what I wanted it to do. So, if this is just not as flowing well as normal, I do apologize. But this is rainfall for the event. Look how heavy this rainfall is down here. My face might be in the way, but some of these areas here in southeast North Carolina, that is upwards to 4 to 8 inches of rain. Not saying that's a forecast. What we want to call forecast is what the Weather Prediction Center is saying. That's actually human beings. But look at this tight cutoff right through here. So, and then we look at, say, the GFS. Let's look at this, go through. And yeah, it's similar with the cutoff, but it's definitely a little different once you get up into here. And then let's take a look at the HRRR model and what it shows. And this is just all the way throughout 2 a.m. Monday. So, yeah, I think the HER model up here favors kind of what the Weather Prediction Center is saying, but there are some sporadic heavier totals. But you can see there is a fine cutoff right up through here, okay? So what about sort of the Baltimore, D.C. area? We're going to keep it at the Weather Prediction Center graphic here, but a couple inches of rain here and there. I don't think this area is going to get a ton of rain, but that could change. I think this area is kind of in the gap between both of the low pressures, if there's two low pressures, but this is how much they're predicting in this area. And then we move up into the New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, and southern New England, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut area. This is how much the Weather Prediction Center is calling for. This is what I would say an actual forecast. And then we go over some of these graphics from other model guidance, like the Euro. And I think we should compare some of these things here. And let's go over, it pretty much is right on par with what the National Weather Service is saying. Not a whole lot different. Maybe some differences down here in southern areas in New Jersey. It does want a plume of 4 to 5 inches of rain into Long Island. We can see how that happens, how that works out. And then we look at the GFS, and I think the GFS is going to be different here. Let's see what it shows. It's definitely a lot less around the New York City area. I think most model guidance is really locked into a few inches of rain in areas of southeast, southern New England. But in general, it is kind of sporadic. The HER model isn't done running through, so I'm not going to show that. But we're just going to keep it to the Weather Prediction Center for my friends up here in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. But this is how much rain they're calling. There's definitely a cutoff on the northern edge of this. But as far as wind speeds, this is the graphic from the National Weather Service. And we're going to keep it at this because a lot of these global models tend to overdo things with winds. Rainfall, they can be on to something. Wind speeds, it's best just to follow the National Weather Service with this. But as you can tell, inland to Georgia and the Carolinas, areas of southern Virginia, just a breezy day. A breezy next weekend, basically all the way into, this is predicted max wind gust between now and about Monday morning. So could get a 25 to 35 mile per hour wind gust throughout inland areas of basically the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Up against the coastline, from Savannah, Beaufort, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, all the way up into Wilmington, you can get a good 30 to 45 mile per hour wind gust. But you get into the Outer Banks, you start to get some of these yellowish orange areas. This is getting close to 50, 55, maybe even a 60 mile per hour wind gust is possible. Now, you get up into the Tidewater, the Delmarva. This is when winds really pick up. And, you get into these intercoastal waterways and stuff like that. And you can get some wind speeds, getting to 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts. I mean, look here in southern areas of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, 50, 60, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. Could get some isolated to scattered power outages in this area, but you can see right into here some very strong winds. But listen, this could change a little bit depending on the development of these low pressures. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now we look at a closer look at the Jersey shoreline, and here we are. And I know this doesn't show towns and city names and stuff on the screen, so I do apologize. But 50 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts up against the Jersey Shore, folks, and even some 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts is predicted here in New York City. The southern shoreline of Long Island, 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, definitely a big classic nor'easter type windstorm here. And then we move up the coast into southern New England, hunker down out here in Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. I really think that things could tweak here a little bit, but for now, this is what they're going for. So in southern New England, it's basically anywhere from 30 to a 45 mile per hour wind gust is possible. Some gusty winds in some of these higher, strong winds in some of these higher terrain areas, like, Mount Washington, of course, is known for very high wind speeds. Can't let my cold brew get watered down, guys. But here's some graphics from the National Weather Service. We'll start south to north. I pulled up what I found. This is a graphic from the National Weather Service out in Wilmington, which ain't really saying a whole lot, but it pretty much gives it a rundown. At the same time, I don't think this area is going to get impacted, I would say, significantly, but you're definitely going to know that there's a storm system off the coastline. So this is a graphic from out of Wilmington. And then this was issued kind of yesterday afternoon. Let's see if they have any new information. Let's see. Moorhead. Some of this stuff updates. Yep, they do. Awesome. Look at that. Look at us doing this. So this was updated 40 minutes ago. Here's some graphics from the National Weather Service out of pretty much the coverage of southern Outer Banks and southeastern, eastern areas of North Carolina. So coastal flooding, and they got a nice graphic here. Hopefully you can see it well. I'm not going to read it word for word. That would take forever. But here's some more graphics. It shows a little bit further up into the Outer Banks, and it does talk about just road closures and flooding of vehicles would be possible, especially along Highway 12, where ocean overwash may make the highway inaccessible. So just be aware of this, guys. I mean, this happens when you have a strong storm system off the coastline. You guys know about this, and this is a closer look at projected rainfall for these areas. 3 to 6 inches of rain could fall in some of these regions. So I'm glad we were able to check that out. Now let's do the same thing for all of these. Let's see if we have any new information. And look at us. We done did it again, guys. This is awesome, except it's blurry. Their graphics out of Wakefield always come out blurry, but it does talk about the potential for coastal flooding being major, from Norfolk up to Yorktown and some of these areas right in here, and then moderate in some of these red areas, minor in the orange, and does just kind of speak on the threat levels for the winds. It's going to be kind of blurry to see on your screen, but you should be able to see this verbiage here. But yeah, that's cool. We had a graphic, and let's see if we got anything new out of the National Weather Service in New Jersey. We do not, unfortunately, which stinks because this is an area that could get significantly impacted. But this was updated around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon from the New Jersey area and surrounding areas, and it's a great map. It's a great discussion here. Pause it if you need to. And then this is out of New York City. Let's see if we have any new information here. Twitter's the easiest way to do this, guys. I mean, by far. And so this is 45 minutes ago, so this is new. It talks about what's changed, key messages. Stop the screen if you need to, and if you do click on that link, I mean, it has an entire breakdown of everything. I know this is kind of small to see on your screen, but shows that Long Island could be in for a windstorm. Maximum wind gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour, and it's a really great breakdown, guys. Y'all should go check it out if you live in this area, if you're concerned. But this is a big storm, guys. Like I said this a few days back that I thought that it was just overlooked because it's not named by the National Hurricane Center. It's more so a nor'easter, but please take this serious, guys. So let's give you an update on the rest of the tropics. Listen, Tropical Storm Jerry just did not work out. This is not going to end up becoming a hurricane, I don't think now, but this is Jerry. Jerry is just a slop fest, and it never got its act together. So some of these runs, those model runs from several days back that were showing a weaker storm system with this were right. Now, a lot of those runs never showed this storm system developing at all. It did. It just never got as strong as a 65 mile per hour tropical storm, I don't think. I think it's a 60 mile per hour right now. This is a pretty beefy wave out here that we're watching, and this is our coastal storm system developing right here. So there's a lot of big things on the page. It looks scary. But the only thing we're really worried about is this. And then the latest from the National Hurricane Center, we do have an area of interest out of that wave right here. Has a 20% chance to develop in this yellow area between now and the next 7 days. And we got, what is a 60 mile per hour tropical storm? Jerry, pretty high pressure with this too. So you can tell this thing's just struggling. Anything to worry about out there? Well, we look at the Euro, we get into late next week. This is next Thursday. This is getting into next Friday. So about 6 days from now, this is the Euro. We get between day 7 and day 10. There is nothing I'm seeing on the Euro. But, of course, we do need to watch the Caribbean and the Gulf. But, man, we have been so lucky. Now, the GFS, the last few runs, has been dropping haymakers down here. And, it's about to show you something crazy on the screen here. Shows a low riding tropical wave coming up about day 7, day 8. So low that it actually brings impacts to northern areas of South America. I don't believe this one bit, but it does get a massive hurricane ongoing and then slips up on the southern coastline of Hispaniola and then proceeds to just get whipped on out to sea. That is not a forecast, guys. The GFS is definitely an outlier right now, but we'll continue to watch and see what changes. Ooh, running out of gas. A long one. Long-winded here. The rest of the country, we got plumes of moisture going across the southwest area of moisture moving across Nebraska, southern areas of South Dakota. We got moisture across the northern Rockies. We got our coastal low here, some northern stream energy moving across southern Ontario, western areas of New York. That's what's ongoing right now. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Some winter alerts up here in the northern Rockies. The pink is winter storm warnings. That purple, winter weather advisories, and this teal color, winter storm watches. We got that along the Sierra Nevada, too. Pretty cool. Flood watches scattered across the four corner states. Got some fog across the Midwest. And, of course, we have these alerts from this coastal storm system moving in across the East coastline. As far as severe weather chances, a marginal risk across areas of Arizona, Utah, eastern Colorado, small section of New Mexico, into Wyoming, into Idaho also. And we also have a marginal risk for areas of eastern North Carolina, too. A tornado threat where there's just enough tropical moisture that will ride up into the Outer Banks. So be mindful of some really water spouts into these areas for sure. And then risk of flooding. The yellow area is a 15% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles of any given location. We got that, of course, across areas of eastern North Carolina and surrounding states also. Looks like the flooding threat has actually dropped a little bit for today across areas of the western U.S. Now, we've already kind of showed you this, but here's another look at it. Our coastal low. And really, I'm just showing you for everyone else. Everyone else looks pretty quiet across the southeast. A nice kind of fall-like day, so enjoy it. The northeast, a quiet day today, but just going to get everything ready for a nor'easter type setup. Some scattered rains will develop across PA, maybe the southern tier of New York. And as we're getting later tonight, we will start to get more moist conditions that moves into the Delmarva, into southern New Jersey. So you got a day to kind of prepare, do what you need to do, tie down some lawn chairs, things like that. South central U.S., big area of moisture scooting across New Mexico, Colorado, some higher elevation snows possible. But as far as Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, points east, it's a nice day. It's quiet. North central U.S., some scattered moisture will move into Minnesota later this afternoon, this evening to form some downpours, maybe there's some showers, and another plume of moisture will move to the Dakotas, northern areas of Nebraska later this evening. And eventually tomorrow morning, it'll make it all the way into western areas of Minnesota. But outside of that, not a big deal. And then the western U.S., this is what we're looking at. a lot of moisture, and then some storms get going here across areas. Sorry guys, I'm starting to run out of steam here. Against Montana, areas of Wyoming, Idaho, northern areas of Utah. Some of these could be strong to severe, kind of one of those wacky weather days like we saw last Saturday, where we saw that crazy weather ongoing around, the Wyoming football game when they played UNLV. But look at this snow. Cold air catches up with some of this moisture falling across the higher terrain of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. So we start to see more blue on the map, especially as we get into tomorrow where colder air starts to catch up. But just be mindful of all this moisture across the four corner states today. A lot of heavy rainfall. And then we got snow for the northern areas really as we're getting into tonight into tomorrow. Heavy snow, starting to add in that snowpack. It's the beginning of it. Temperatures is what we're looking at. And then this is the western U.S. Big area of warmth kind of in between a trough and then return flow to the east. So anything else? I saw no Bible devotion this morning. I just slept in and just was wore out from driving all day yesterday. So got me some good sleep, and we'll get back to it tomorrow morning. So we'll get the routine of the devotions going. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there along the East Coast.